Hey guys, welcome to another movie review. Today I'm talking about the new Christopher Nolan film, The Odyssey. This is a film I've really been looking forward to throughout 2026. As you can even see by my shirt here, I'm a huge Christopher Nolan fan. I love the Dark Knight trilogy. I love Inception. I love Dunkirk. He really has not really made a bad film, if we're really being honest here. Even some of his earlier work, like Memento and Following, have their qualities that really kind of hold up over time and still make him a great filmmaker. So he is kind of that rare filmmaker that even if you didn't absolutely love one or two of his movies, I mean, almost every film he's worked on is good in its own little way, even if it's not considered like his best work or anything like that. But here we got The Odyssey, his most recent film, and it's based off the original Homer text from Greek mythology, which has been obviously translated into almost every language imaginable. It very much is a story that has influenced Western culture, specifically U.S. culture, with our stories and how we tell stories and how stories are structured, and kind of introduces nonlinear storytelling and a bunch of other stuff that you would never really imagine or could think of as far as how it's influenced the culture we live in and how we tell stories today, and how there's even plot points that does trace back to this story all the way, hundreds of years ago when Homer wrote this story, all those years ago. But in this film, you guys, if you really don't know anything about the story of the Odyssey, it's essentially this character played by Matt Damon, whose name is Odysseus, and he is a soldier of the Trojan War, and him and his soldiers that managed to, excuse me, him and his soldiers that survived this Trojan War are trying to work their way back home. They live in a kingdom called Ithaca, and on their way back, they encounter all these really terrible things that they encounter on their way home. They encounter a giant cyclops. They encounter this woman that can transform human beings into different kind of animals. They encounter specifically Odysseus, this woman that can kind of held you hostage with this flower thing, and there's a bunch of other obstacles that happen over the course of the film that Nolan kind of plays with your expectations on. So if you know anything about the Odyssey going in, he might, throw you off with like, oh, well, this story and this other story are being combined together and all this other stuff. And I just thought it was very expertly handled. It really does show. And so I guess going back to the plot, actually. So basically, like I said, Odysseus and his men are trying to work their way back to Ithaca, and that is a place where people are working their way to the throne. They're trying to figure out who the king of the kingdom should be, and Odysseus's wife Penelope, I believe her name is, and she's played by Anne Hathaway, will only marry a person who is able to put together this really complicated bow and arrow, and can clip the arrow through these series of axes that land on a wall. And until somebody can accomplish this task, she won't remarry anybody because she's, excuse me again, she won't remarry anybody because she wants to stay married to Odysseus. And that's essentially the plot of the Odyssey. But overall, guys, I really enjoyed this film a lot. Christopher Nolan is just one of those directors where he knows exactly how to tell a story. He knows how to tell a story very uniquely. He knows how to bring new angles to it, new genres to it. Even in this film alone, he covers genres that he kind of very loosely covered in some of his other movies, but he kind of takes it on in this one. Whether it is the horror genre, whether it is a fantasy genre, whether it is an adventure genre, whether it is a more dramatic form of storytelling for him to pursue. There's just a lot of more like creature design and more um, metaphorical characters. Like, how do you present Poseidon without actually showing Poseidon? How do you present Zeus without having, Zeus show up on the screen? How do you present, Athena? Like, if Athena's a real person, how do you present her? So I'll get to her in my compliments here in a little bit. He's just a very, he definitely thought all of this through. You can definitely tell the Odyssey is a story that very much is very near and dear to his heart, and he found a way to tell it in a very unique way. And I just love the guy for always having a unique way to tell his stories. But overall, for my positives and negatives, you guys, I just thought this whole film, because he didn't shoot the entire film in IMAX cameras, and you can tell it's very beautifully shot. whether it's, characters floating on a boat in the water, whether it's soldiers escaping a cyclops creature, whether it's um, a huge landscape that he wants you to see, while also making sure you know where Odysseus and these other characters are that we're trying to follow around in the shot and in the scene. It's just a very beautifully shot movie that he just very much realized what the story of the Odyssey is, while also bringing his own take on it, while also mixing around some things so he doesn't have to go through every single chapter of that book and just retell it if you've already known it the way that it is. He really does have a unique way of combining certain plot elements and story elements that really make the Odyssey his own. And once again, he just very beautifully shot this film in IMAX cameras. The film also has an amazing use of flashbacks. I just love the way that we learn about certain characters, we learn about certain pasts of certain characters through these flashbacks that really do help move the story along in a very effective way, whether it's learning about Odysseus at a young age, learning about a soldier that he lost at a young age, whether it's about the John Leguizamo mentor character realizing something or pursuing something or finding out about a skill that he had at a young age. It's just he uses this very huge ensemble cast in a very effective way, and the way that he uses flashbacks does help us learn about each and every one of these characters, so we really could feel invested in their journey and really get into these performances of these characters and these performers that perform the characters as well. Just amazing use of flashbacks. Really enjoyed what Nolan brought to this film overall. I also thought the use of practical effects was very effective here, whether it is an animatronic puppet playing that Cyclops, or whether it is real life pigs that they found I'm sure at a farm somewhere that have to move around in the scene to get the impression that this is somebody or something that got turned into a pig at one point in time in the story. Just a really amazing practical effects that really kind of add to the story, and it really does kind of show, it's cool to have CGI on certain things, and yes, CGI can be effective if it's used properly on certain kind of scenes in a movie, but in the case of this movie, if you have practical effects where you can truly do it on screen, when you can have actors truly reacting to something that is on the set, on the movie with them, like I said, whether it is an animatronic puppet or real life pigs moving around in the scenes and stuff like that, just the use of practical effects really does bring a whole new angle to the story and to the film that I think only Christopher Nolan can achieve, because he really does realize just how great and amazing it is to have real practical things happening on set that the performers can react to live on camera for us. And like I mentioned earlier, this film does have great dramatic performances, whether it is John Leguizamo or Matt Damon or Lupita Nyong'o or um, Benny Safdie, just tons and tons of cast members that I can't even name off the top of my head that are just really great in the film. They all give great dramatic performances here. It is one of those films where it really is the actors and actresses that really kind of bring it to make it as great as it possibly is, and to make the script come to life as best as they possibly can. And I thought all those performances were very great and dramatic and very effective for the story being told. I also thought the use of Athena was very effective in the film here. I thought the way Zendaya played this character was very effective. I also liked how mysterious this character is. It very much is a character that is very much a spiritual mentor to the Odysseus character, whether it's helping him realize something on the journey, helping him come to terms on something on the journey, whether it's she's there to help him realize that he did make a mistake, that he lost too many soldiers on certain choices that he chose to make, whether it is him helping him realize that certain things of the choices and the way he's directing his life are going to hurt the way that his wife and his son and these other followers that he still has back at Ithaca are going to view him when he gets back home eventually. So just the use and the mystery that they had around the Athena character and how Zendaya chose to play it. She had a very elegant way and a very mysterious way of playing the character, which I really liked. And I just love the way that Athena was depicted on screen, and I love the way that Zendaya played the character. She really is kind of the secret MVP of the movie to me, if I'm really being really real with you. I also thought the way that the mythology world really kind of felt like a real thing in the movie. It does feel like if these mythological things and creatures really were to exist in our real world, what would that feel like? And I like how Nolan does have this sense of squids feeling, like real things in this world. Like if a cyclops really were to exist in our world, what would it feel like? How would they respond to people? How would they respond to a threat? Just the way all these mythology world and things that these characters come into contact with, whether, like I said, it's a metaphorical version of Poseidon, a metaphorical version of Zeus, um, metaphorical version of a son of Poseidon or whatever. Just really, he found a way to make it feel real and to really make us feel like we're within this mythology world, in a world that we kind of already know and exist in. And what would it feel like if some of these mythological things that we've learned in mythology really were a part of the world that we live in right now? And I really like that he really brought that home for the movie that he made. But for my negatives of the movie, I really only have one. And the one that I chose to use for my negative really is just kind of more of a nitpick and kind of a personal preference more than anything else. For me personally, some of the hairstyles in the movie really felt a little too modern for me. For me in particular, Tom Holland, who plays Odysseus' son, I felt like his haircut could have been done at any cost cutters in America, honestly. I just felt like it didn't feel like something from an ancient Greek time period that this Odyssey story was told and that Homer wrote. And even some of the shirts that some of these characters wear, like if they were in battle and they need to take off, parts of their armor and stuff. There's like a shot near the end in the third act where Matt Damon has a lot of his stuff cut off in battle, and the shirt that we kind of see, that's kind of the last shirt before he goes topless, feels like something that any shirt in America, any shirt store or clothing store would have sold to you and stuff like that. So some of the stuff in here does feel a little too modern for my taste. If you're really going to go the Greek mythology route, send us back to ancient Greece to tell these stories and tell the story of the Odyssey. I do kind of want a full commitment to realistic armor, realistic helmets, the way that some of these soldiers would have dressed in the real, Trojan War and stuff like that. In particular, like I mentioned earlier, the hairstyle of Tom Holland really just felt like he's filming a Spider-Man film soon. Let's not look into a wig. We'll just kind of put him on the set the way that he looks right now. And I really think he would have benefited from some type of realistic wig that looked like something out of ancient Greece and really could have helped us get immersed into the illusion that he really was a part of that ancient Greece world. It really could have made the film feel way more effective to me. And like I said, some of the shirts, but typically some of the stuff that Matt Damon wore before his character would become topless in a battle, I thought could have felt more like something from ancient Greece and something from the ancient world that doesn't belong in our world as of right now. But overall, guys, I'm going to give The Odyssey a 9.5 out of 10. It's an absolutely wonderful film, easily in my top 4 or 5 favorite Christopher Nolan movies. I still think The Dark Knight and Inception are probably my all-time favorites, obviously with the shirt and everything. The Dark Knight and Inception are probably still my favorite Christopher Nolan films, but this is still a wonderful film. It is a wonderful addition to Christopher Nolan's filmography. Can't wait to see what he works on next. Hopefully we'll get it in 2028, 2029. He seems to have every 3 years he's able to get a film made. So it's a 9.5 out of 10 for me. I highly recommend it. It is currently one of my favorite films of 2026. Like I said, 9.5 out of 10 for me. I highly recommend it. If you're a Christopher Nolan fan, if you're a Greek mythology fan, I think if you're either one of those, absolutely see this film. And yes, I do think it is absolutely worth the extra money to see this on the IMAX screen. So if you have one in your area, I personally kind of drove a little out of my way to go to one of the best IMAX screens I had access to with some friends, and it was absolutely worth it. So it's a 9.5 out of 10 for me. Highly recommend The Odyssey. Be sure to see this one.